evening and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of Monday, February 27th, 2023. I now call the meeting to order, and I will ask Commissioner Andrade to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner. I see there are no announcements or presentations tonight, so this takes us to public comments.
Commissioner, or Chair, I'm so sorry, I have to do roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, I totally missed that. Thank you. Yeah. Roll call, please.
Chair Arith,
Here.
Vice Chair Toller,
Here.
Commissioner Rojas,
Present.
Commissioner Zick,
Here.
Commissioner Andrade,
Here.
Commissioner Vivar,
Present.
Commissioner Tabor.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Anna. I appreciate you catching that. Again, I see we have no announcements or presentations, so this takes us to public comments. I will let the public know that public comments will be heard at this time on items that are not listed on the agenda but are within our jurisdiction. And I will open the public comment. If you would like to speak, please come to the podium. And I think for tonight, you need to come to the podium to my right, your left, if you'd like to speak, because the one on the right, your right, is having some issues. And if you're participating via Zoom, use the raised hand option at the bottom of the screen. And if you're joining the meeting on your phone and would like to speak, please press *9. Do we have any speakers in the chamber tonight? Anna, do we have anyone on Zoom or phone?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Let's see here. I will now close public comments. And at this time, I will ask for Planning Commissioner comments, starting with Commissioner Rojas.
I have no comments tonight, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Zick.
Thank you. Just two comments. Actually, both of them are in the form of a request to staff. One of the things that used to be pretty handy when asking questions and referring to our staff reports was to refer to the handwritten page number because multiple aspects of a staff report will be page numbered 1 through whatever. And so it can be ambiguous to say refer to page 7. I don't know how much extra work that is, but if that's something that could be considered for the future, I'd appreciate it. And then the second thing, also a suggestion, comes under what I would put the heading of economic development. I am interested in seeing an economic analysis comparing the financial benefit to the city, comparing retail liquor stores to retail cannabis. And I'm sure it is something that could be prepared at some point, and I would look forward to seeing that. So I may bring the topic up again, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Zick. And I will, I think, just quickly echo that in saying that if we can do handwritten pages, I noticed in one of these that they were missing, so that would be great if we could continue to include those. And then also on Commissioner Zick's second request, if you can find the time at some point, that would be great. Thank you. Commissioner Andrade.
None at this time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Tabor.
No comments.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Vivar.
Yes, I do have a couple comments. I too want to throw my support behind Commissioner Zick's request for the economic analysis. And I do have two more comments I'd like to make on top of that as well. One being that I'd like to echo a request that my colleague Commissioner Rojas did at our meeting 2 weeks ago in asking for a map of approved retail cannabis locations in the city of Costa Mesa in our packets. I might have missed it. I'm not sure if it was included in this one that we're looking at tonight, but for future items relating to retail cannabis, having that as a handout in our notes. In the staff report materials would be great. On top of it being in the PowerPoint that staff presents to us. So if we could get that to us, that would be great. Second of all, I am interested in finding out when the Planning Commission is scheduled to hear the pedestrian master plan. I think it's a very important piece of city policy that we look at. I think it's important that we have these conversations about pedestrian and bicycle safety as it relates to our planning work up here. So if we could get an update on when we'll be able to look at the pedestrian master plan, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Vice Chair.
No comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll be really brief. I'll make a couple statements, and if staff want to come in with any additional information, that's fine. As far as the pedestrian master plan is concerned, I believe I asked for it the last time we were meeting, and I understand that staff is encumbered right now with a lot of stuff, and that the city is potentially in a little bit of a transition, moving away from certain things and moving into others, including the pedestrian master plan. So I know that that's coming soon. It's just a matter of when that's going to shake out exactly. So I think that's all I have to say on that. And if staff want to add anything, that's fine.
No, with regards to the pedestrian master plan, we are prioritizing our work, just like you said, Sheriff, and it's just going to come when we've got a few other statutory requirements that we have to complete. But I know that the Transportation Division has all but finished it, and we just need to get to it.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Jopkin. I appreciate that. So that brings us to the consent calendar, and we have one consent calendar item this evening to approve the minutes. So I'll ask commissioners if they have any comments on the minutes. If anyone wants to jump in, that's fine.
I just have a quick question. I was comparing these minutes to the minutes that we approved at the meeting 2 weeks ago, and realized that the format was a bit different in that in the previous set of minutes, each commissioner's comments were summarized in a succinct paragraph, whereas for this set of minutes, the discussion seemed to be just summarized in a paragraph on more broadly what was discussed between staff and commission rather than specific commissioner statements. So I was just wondering if there is a reason for this difference, and if that just relates to staff, different staff members preparing the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Vivar. That actually is a perfect review of what you've seen. The minutes that generally will come to our action minutes, where we're just basically describing in very short detail what occurred. There's always a video that is behind it, so we basically rely on the video more than the minutes. However, in the situation of the first minutes that you're talking about, that minutes also went to a city council appeal, and we provided a little bit more details just to really clarify what some of the issues, so the council was really clear on what the commission, how the commission reviewed it, what they reviewed, and what were their statements following.
I see. Great. Well, thank you for the answer to that, and that's it for me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Vivar. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will make one quick comment, maybe just humorously. My one comment was left out, and that was to wish everyone a happy Valentine's Day, but I don't think you need to put that in. Okay. So other than that, I think if there's nothing left to say, would anyone like to make a motion on the minutes? Motion by Commissioner Vivar. What is your motion? Or Commissioner Vivar, what is your motion?
I'd like to move that we approve the minutes of the February 13th meeting.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair, you seconded. Any comments?
No comments.
Okay, thank you. All right. Let's, if there are no other comments up here, seeing none, I guess we can put it to a vote. Anna.
That motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. This brings us to public hearings. We have 3 public hearings this evening. Anna, if you will read the title for public hearing item number 1, I'd appreciate it.
Public hearing item number 1, planning application 22-43 is a request to modify a conditional use permit for an existing convenience store to change the type of off-sale state alcoholic beverage control ABC license from type 20 beer and wine to type 21 general to expand the approved hours of operation at 1178 Sunflower Avenue. Please note we have received public comments on this item that have been provided to the commission and made a part of the record. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
Thank you, Anna. As far as ex parte communications, we'll start with Commissioner Tabor. Do you have any to report, sir?
No.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Vivor?
Yeah, I exchanged 2 emails with the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Rojas?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Zick?
I received a courteous outreach email from the applicant and simply thank them for that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Andrade?
None.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair?
No.
Okay, and I also received a courtesy email from Mr. Dadra, and I replied to that email, but there was really no substantive exchange in that email. So with that said, I will now turn it over to Mr. Raimondo to present the item.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jeffrey Raimondo, Assistant Planner with the Economic Development Services Department. And the item before you tonight is Planning Application 22-43, which is a request to modify a conditional use permit for an existing convenience store called AK Market, located at 1178 Sunflower Avenue. Now, the modifications include expanding the approved hours of operation and changing the type of off-sale state alcoholic beverage control license from a type 20 license, which limits alcoholic sales to beer and wine only, to now a type 21 license to include the sale of distilled spirits. The existing convenience store is located along Sunflower Avenue, northeast of the intersection of Fairview Street and Sunflower Avenue. The subject site is a shopping center known as the Sunflower Center, which consists of a multi-tenant commercial building comprising of a total of 5 tenants. Now, the subject property is zoned C1, which is the local business district. As shown on the zoning map, the property is neighbored by commercial properties to the east and west, as well as residential to the south across the street of Sunflower Avenue. The subject property also abuts the city boundary of Santa Ana to the north, which consists of a multifamily residential development. And here is a site plan of the existing site, accompanied with an on-site photo for reference. And looking at the site, the existing convenience store currently occupies the farthest tenant to the west. Including the store, the Sunflower Center contains 4 other tenants comprising of a nail salon, a laundromat, a beauty salon, and a dry cleaning service. And looking at the floor plan of the business is 2,400 square feet in total, primarily with a retail area with cold and dry storage areas located in the rear of the tenant. No exterior modifications or expansion to interior square footage will be proposed, as the business will look to continue similar operations as a convenience store with the additional sales of distilled spirits. For a little background, the existing convenience store has operated since the approval of their original conditional use permit under planning application 02-08 in 2001. The original approval resulted in a type 20 license to restrict alcoholic sales to beer and wine only, with the applicant proposing to limit their hours of operation to 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. Since then, the applicant is now interested in expanding their operations by changing their ABC license from a Type 20 to a Type 21 license to now include the sale of distilled spirits. Furthermore, the applicant is requesting to modify their hours of operation to now open an hour earlier and an hour later on Sunday through Thursday, and an hour earlier on Friday and Saturday. When it comes to conditions, the original conditions of approval and planning application 02-08 will remain, with staff adding conditions addressing hours of operation and the change of alcohol sales. With that said, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA and to approve planning application 22-43, subject to conditions of approval. Now, this concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have. And the applicant, Rakesh Dadra, is also in attendance to answer any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raimondo. I appreciate that. Good job. Commissioners, do you have any questions of staff on this item? Commissioner Zick.
Thank you. I've got a couple questions. On staff report page 3, there is a question I've got about the 500-foot notification radius. And I have the question because on staff report page 7, it references an attached notification radius map. And I was not able to find such a map in the staff report. So my specific question is, does the 500-foot radius, which would expand into Santa Ana, include notification to Santa Ana residents and business owners?
While Jeff's looking over and he found the map, it does include the Santa Ana property, so it's not limited to just the city.
Great, thank you for that. And is that map in our staff report and I just missed it?
I didn't see the map, Jeff. I know Jeff has it in his project file, but
Oh, okay, I got it. And then I've got a question about condition of approval number 29, which requires patrols every 2 hours. And my question, and I noticed that was a condition in the original CUP for this applicant, and I haven't noticed that condition of approval in more recent liquor CUP applications. Has that always been there?
I can give that answer a try. I believe from what I can tell, and I've looked over some past reports from the early 2000s and even earlier before then, there was a different set of conditions of approval for liquor stores that have been amended over the years. I don't know if this one was transposed from an earlier code provision, but I have seen this one in other older applications. It's definitely not a requirement per the current liquor store provisions, because there's special liquor store provisions for project approvals, and this one is not part of that.
Got it. And so since you indicate on staff report page 4 that the police department has reviewed this request and has no concerns, would it be fair to assume that they would also not be concerned if that condition of approval were to be removed?
The police haven't reviewed the application without that condition. It, like you mentioned, it was part of the condition of approval, so it might have gave the police department reason to believe that there is no issues. Without them being here, it's hard to ask, and I apologize for their lack of attendance, but I wouldn't, this is obviously a condition from the original project approval, and our point was to try to keep the conditions going forward with changes of conditions only relating to the modification request.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then my last question, staff report page 4 indicates that the Circle K that is next door has a type 21 license. I just want to make sure we verified that, and if so, I can understand how this applicant might feel it's somewhat of a disadvantage. So do we know for sure Circle K as a type 21 license.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I believe your report. I just want to make certain of that.
Yeah, so that Circle K is located in the city of Santa Ana, and it should have a type 21 license.
And it does, you say.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Zick. Any other commissioners wish to comment here? You're welcome to just give me a nod if you do. No? Commissioner Vivar.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I realized that, or I noticed that the staff report for this mentioned that there previously were two establishments with Type 21 license in the area, but have ceased operation. So I was just curious about that, since it relates to the analysis on concentration of Type 21 or ABC licenses in the tract census tract area. So I was wondering, do we know why those are gone? Was that because of a call for service issues, or did they just simply cease to operate for business reasons?
So the information that we received that you're referring to was from the previous report. And the previous report obviously reported on 4 uses that had a alcohol license that was subject to the PCN requirements, public necessity and convenience, PNC, I guess, if you want it. I can't remember what their acronym actually is, but anyways, that's the public necessity of convenience. And I don't know why the other 2 are missing, unfortunately, Commissioner Vivar, but it's because it has been a long time.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem. And then the other question I had, and this is just for my own edification, since I'm not really knowledgeable with ABC licenses. So an applicant comes to us first for approval to obtain the Type 21 license, and after our green light, they would then go to the state ABC department for that Type 21 license. Is that correct?
It's correct that the state does not issue their ABC license until they get confirmation from the local agency.
Okay, got it. That's it for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Seeing no other questions, I will ask, I believe, one question, Mr. Raimondo. If we turn over to Exhibit B, I believe in the conditions, it was saying that there would be no, gosh, let me see what page it is. I don't have page numbers here, but it's right after Exhibit B, number 15. It says exterior signage, advertisements promoting or indicating the availability of alcoholic beverages shall be prohibited, et cetera, et cetera. Is this to say that they cannot, in name or in image, say that it is a, quote, liquor store or have liquor anywhere in their signage?
I try to take that as well. I think I believe you're correct. Again, this is a previous condition that we've just kind of linked with the current proposal, but it does sound that way, the way that they were conditioning it, that it wouldn't be a signage that said, for example, that you'll see in some situations that basically say liquor or anything similar to that, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Jopkin. That'll suffice. I have one more question. I am curious if some of the language in the conditions of approval is a carryover from the original ones from back in, the 90s, I guess. But I did notice under, if you flip 2 pages later to number 31, it's just, it says the Development Services Director or his designee. I didn't know if we could just make a language change to say his or her designee, please.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's fine. And that's all for me. Thank you very much. So at this point, seeing as how we have no other questions or comments, Vice Chair, no, okay. I will open up the public hearing and ask the applicant to come up, please. And if you could, please state your name for the record, and have you read the staff report and the conditions of approval, and do you agree to them, sir?
Good evening. My name is Rakesh, and I have, in fact, read the conditions of approval. I have written a few words. Good evening, Planning Commission. I'm Rakesh Dadra, here on behalf of AK Market, and I'm honored to accept the conditions placed upon our location. The name of our store, AK Market, holds a special significance as it is derived from a Sanskrit word, ekta, meaning unity, togetherness, and sense of community. This is exactly what we aspire to bring to our surrounding community through our establishment. For over 20 years, my father and I have called Costa Mesa our home, and we have dedicated ourselves to ensuring that AK Market is a safe and welcoming environment for our neighbors to shop. The conditional use permit under discussion tonight is of great significance to our family-run small business, and will play a vital role in our continued growth and success. We understand the importance of maintaining a harmonious relationship with our community, and I assure you that we will continue to prioritize their well-being and satisfaction. We humbly ask for your support in granting us this permit, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dodra. If you'd please stay up here, just in the event that any of the commissioners have any questions, that would be great. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Zick?
Thank you. I'm curious about your request to modify your hours of operation, in particular the 6 a.m. start. What is your rationale for that? And what hardship would it impose on you if the hours of operation stayed at 7 a.m. start?
So the hours of operations, we do offer other goods. We have a coffee station. We also sell energy drinks. So for our patrons that maybe go to work early, we just want to provide donuts, coffee, energy drinks, water, whatever they may need an hour prior.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Zick. Any other commissioners?
Yeah, I have one question. Thank you for your business in the city, and I think this is great that you're seeking to expand your business operations. And so I am curious, and the answer might, be obvious to people, but I'd still like to ask it. Why seek the change in license from type 20 to type 21, and why now?
On a daily basis, we have customers requesting some spirits, and we have to turn them away. We would like to keep the business in our city of Costa Mesa rather than them having to go to a neighboring city or, out of their way to go elsewhere. So we just thought this would be a great upgrade to our shop.
All right, great. That's it for me, Mr. Chairman. No more questions.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Any others here? Commissioner Tabor? Questions? Okay, great. I think I don't have any questions for you, but I just have a statement.
And
yes, sir.
The 2-hour patrolling will be continuing. We are part of the CJ Segerstrom's and Sons properties. So they patrol every 2 hours just to keep everybody safe. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Okay, thank you. And we often see them around town in all kinds of areas.
So yeah, they stop by our shop every 2 hours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dodra. I just have one comment to make, because where you're located is actually right next to where I used to get donuts in the morning when I was in elementary school and middle school. Because I used to live on the north end of town in the South Coast metro area, ride my Huffy straight down Fairview, and then the donut store was right next to it.
Yeah,
so,
I also used to walk over to get their donut holes in the morning.
Exactly.
But yeah, they're no longer there. They were replaced by a nail salon, so
they are,
now we
for
work
sure.
with them.
Yeah, the mid-90s was a long time ago, for sure. Thank you. And that's all from me, Mr. Dodra. Thank you very much. Commissioner Tabor.
So I was kind of reading through all these sign requirements, and it doesn't really look like you're adhering to them. Do we have to put them in this thing, or can we just say it's cool that he can do the signs that he currently has? Because it's like you can't have a sign block the window, you can't have a neon sign, you can't do this and that, which isn't really currently happening. Is that too restrictive?
It is a bit limiting, I would agree. But if you guys would think, you know, just for the safety of the environment, we're more than happy to not, you know, put any signage up. But yeah, we do plan on staying a market. We're not going to convert into AK liquor. Yeah, we will continue to serve the community as a convenience market. We just wanted a few, you know, options of some of the harder stuff just for our customers that, you know, do have to drive to other places. So we're just like, why not provide them a one-stop shop here? But yeah, the signage, yeah, I don't really see it like really being an issue with, especially our aesthetic outside. So the neon, maybe we'll consider putting it inside the shop, but it's completely up to you guys.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dodra. And I'll kick this over to staff if they'd like to comment on this.
So I think what the Commissioner Tabor's request was if we could loosen the signage requirements to add, for instance, the word liquor to the signage, if that's, am I not mistaken?
Well, I don't know what stuff's called. There's a bunch of numbers and stuff next to it, but it says like he can't have a neon sign that says open and close. Like that doesn't seem like a big deal. You know, like, can we just let him, there's a picture of all these signs in his window. That's technically like against this permit thing. So can we just take some of that out, or how does that work?
So ultimately, signage is approved under staff normally. There are conditions, obviously, in this one that, in this approval that talk about limitations and speak to limitations, I should say. Normally, I would suggest not having an exuberant amount of signage. It provides for signage clutter. It doesn't look aesthetically pleasing at a certain point. So my recommendation from a staff perspective would be to keep the signage requirements, and especially if the tenant, if the applicant isn't in need of all of those signage, I would also recommend the applicant removing any signage requirements, signage up that doesn't comply. So, but that doesn't mean that that's not what the commission can do. So that's my recommendation. That's staff's recommendation. My recommendation would essentially be to consider signage over proliferation and clutter.
Okay.
So that would be my only concern.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dropkin. Any other questions, Commissioner Tabor? Also Mr. Tabor, but.
No, I think like either we should have conditions in there that we think are valuable and we want the applicant to adhere to, or if we don't care, we just take them out. But right now we have stuff that's not being adhered to. So from a city perspective, do we care if he has signs in his window? Do we care if he has a neon sign that says open? Like, should we have that in there to prohibit, or I don't know, it's kind of weird.
I can also add some context. I would say signage in the city has historically been something that you do see conditions of approval on, especially for convenience stores, for the reasons that Mr. Drapkin described. It's certainly the commission's purview to modify conditions of approval if you like, but from staff's perspective, we do recommend that they stay in. And if they were required as a condition of approval, we do think that they're valuable. I will say also that our code enforcement operation is a complaint-based operation. So should we receive complaints on the signs, we would be going out there and enforcing these conditions. We don't proactively do that necessarily. It's usually complaint-based, but certainly we have in the past, depending on what we see in the community.
Okay. Thank you, Director Lee. Happy to keep going with questions if you'd like, Commissioner Tabor. Otherwise... Okay, all right. Commissioner Zick.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out to Commissioner Tabor, the condition of approval number 17 that prohibits neon signage goes on to say it specifically excludes open and closed signs. So if he has a neon open and closed sign, that's completely fine, according to the current condition of approval. If there's neon signage beyond that that is of interest, then of course that could be a point of discussion in a motion later. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zick. That was very astute. Thank you. All right. So seeing no further questions, I will now open this up to the public comment period. If you'd like to speak to this item, please approach the podium. And again, to my right, your left. And Mr. Dodder, you can have a seat, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you're on Zoom, use the raised hand option. If you're joining the meeting on your phone and would like to speak, please press *9. So we'll start in the chambers here. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Hey, good evening. Good evening. My name is Robert Daniel Ramirez. I'm actually one of the community members that shops at the AK Market. Just about, I would say we're in there about 3 to 4 times a week. So we're very familiar with that store and very familiar with Keisha and his father. Good people, you know, they're very community based. I think what they're asking for is not too much, to be honest. They've proven to me, I've been going there for 6 years now, I'm about to be 7. And they're just good people. So I think this would actually benefit them, their family business, and then make it more fair. Like you said, if Circle K has it, why can't AK Market have the same thing? So yeah, I think it would be a great idea, personally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in chambers that would like to speak?
Hello, Jason Myra. Thank you for your time today. I hope everyone's doing well. Yeah, I've been living in the city of Costa Mesa for 7+ years. I've been working in Santa Ana, Costa Mesa border for about 15, and during that time, I'd always stop by AK Market to pick up items I may need. Now, I personally don't buy hard liquor or spirits, but I can see if I did, it would be very convenient that they would have it. It'd save me a stop. I know recently I used to buy menthol cigarettes from him. Recently that's been taken away, so I know he's losing money on that. So, and I've asked him about that, and quite a significant hit, I think. So this would be a way for him to supplement some of the lost income, you know, and additional items to sell. And on a personal note, no matter what kind of day they're having, Rakesh or his father, they always greet me with a smile, treat me polite, friendly, professional. It's always, you know, even if I'm having a bad day, talking to them brings up my attitude and brightens my day. So I got nothing but nice things to say about them. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else in chambers that wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is John. I've been living in Costa Mesa for around 35 years. I moved here since when I was like 3 or 4. I do run a small business, a family-owned business of pest control. I also do real estate on the side, and I've been going to AK Market for a long time. Both him and his father are really good people. They're always like willing to help, and I'm kind of glad that they're requesting earlier hours, because as pest control, we always go early too. And it's nice to go to a place that we can get coffee and food and stuff like that before we run the route. So I hope that you guys would take the consideration and approve them. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in chambers? I see one more. Maybe 2. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Eric, and I've been going to AK Market for over 20 years, so I approve the update. Hopefully he gets it, and it's a good market, very family-oriented, and I personally know Rakisha and his dad. That's all.
Okay, thank you, sir. And if there's anyone else who wishes to speak, if you could just line up on that far side, that would be great. Mr. Blue.
Yes, good to see you, commissioners. I just wanted to offer my support for AK Market staying open till 11 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am, welcome.
My name is Joy. I've lived in Costa Mesa for 50 years. And I worked in that center when it first opened. I was hairdresser in a salon there. And we've been going to the market for, ever since it opened. They're always kind, it's clean, and they're kind to even the lesser people that go there. They're always welcoming and have open arms to them. And I think they deserve whatever they need to have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Seeing no one else, Anna, if we can go to Zoom. Do we have anyone?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do we have anyone on the telephone?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and ask the commissioners if you have any further questions for the applicant. Seeing none, Mr. Dadra, you're welcome to make any closing remarks if you'd like, sir. Or not, it's up to you.
No, I do not have any remarks.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Commissioners, do you have any further questions for staff at this point? Seeing no questions, now close the public hearing and ask the commission if anyone would like to make a motion. See Commissioner Zick.
I move that we adopt a resolution finding that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act per CEQA Guidelines 15301 and approve the planning application 22-43 subject to conditions of approval, with the exception that I would like to remove condition of approval number 29, which requires these 2-hour patrols. I want to remove that condition of approval. That's my motion.
And I see Commissioner Vivar seconded the motion. Yes, sir, if you'd like to speak.
To my motion, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess before I throw my full support in here, I'd like to just ask Commissioner Zick if this would be a sort of a binding thing, or if this condition removal would go into effect if given the okay by the police department and have their review first.
No, I'm not interested in conditioning this removal on some review.
Okay. I'll still support the motion.
You will. You said you will still support
Yeah.
the motion? Okay. Are there, would anyone else like to speak to Commissioner Zick's motion?
I would like to.
Okay.
Okay. One thing that's perfectly clear to me from all the letters of support is that you're running a successful business. If you weren't, not only wouldn't we have those letters of support, we likely would have half of the neighborhood surrounding you here, maybe giving us a different kind of input for our consideration, and clearly they're not. We don't require that you have security on site, and I'm uncomfortable with a requirement that would have forced you or an employee to go around and do a patrol. I don't think that we require something similar in cannabis businesses where we have uniform security, but you're not providing uniform security. So I'm uncomfortable with requiring you to do that. The fact that Segerstroms have security that run around to their properties is great. I think that's what good businesses do. They take care of things. And I suspect that informally, if you were to notice undesirable conditions around your business, you would alert the proper authorities. So that's why I'm very comfortable removing this condition of approval from my motion. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Zick. Commissioner Vivar.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Zick in that if there would have been problems at the site for any calls to serve, calls for service, we would have had that in the staff report. And as Commissioner Zick pointed out as well, we would have had committee members here saying that they were not comfortable with the proposed change of the ABC license, and I am sure the patrols will continue to your property, as it seems that the property owner is very proactive, which is great, and I wish that more property owners around the city would take a more proactive approach as well. And I fully support this change as well, in that I think it'll allow this business to continue expanding, supporting already existing small businesses. There is a land use element policy that I always like to mention that talks about the small about businesses remaining and continuing to operate and allowing them to continuing to operate. And so I think that this is doing that, and this is giving a small business in the city that has been here for several decades the opportunity to keep competing in the market, and to keep providing services to the local community and those who pass by our city. And that's it from me.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other comments from the commission? Commissioner Rojas, Commissioner Andrade, Vice Chair, Commissioner Tabor. Okay, and I have none either. So with that said, Anna, if we could come to the vote. Thank you.
That motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. That decision is final unless appealed to the City Council within 7 days. Good luck, Mr. Dadra. Thank you. And before we get into item 2, I think we should
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Dadra. Let's go ahead and take a 5 to 10 minute break before we get into the next one. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. All right, audio room, let's go ahead. Welcome back to the Planning Commission meeting of Monday, February 27, 2023. I call the meeting back into order. And Anna, if you will, please read the title for public hearing item number 2, please.
Public hearing item number 2, planning application 21-36 for a retail cannabis storefront business located at 167 Cabrillo Street, Cabrillo Community Project LLC, DBA Native Garden. Please note we have received public comments on this item that have been provided to the commission and made a part of the record. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
Thank you very much, Anna. I'll go ahead and start to my right. Commissioner Rojas.
The only communication I received some emails, but I did not have a chance to respond.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Zick.
As I indicated at our January 23rd meeting, I had met on site with the applicant and the applicant's representatives. And since then, I've had additional conversations with the applicant's representative.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Andrade.
None.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair?
Yes. Before the last meeting on January 23rd, I had a Zoom call with the applicant, and they provided me an overview.
Okay, great. Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Tabor?
After the last meeting on the way out, I told them they did a good job presenting their case.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Vivar?
Yeah, I exchanged an email with the applicant, and I had conversations with several neighboring residents.
Okay, is that all, sir?
Yes, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you so much. And I too have ex parte to relay. I have talked to one of the local businesses in the surrounding area. Following the last meeting, I was a part of an email chain with Mr. Glue for a couple emails that went back and forth. And I also held a call with Mr. Glue today for about 25 minutes. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's about it. So with that said, I will go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Halligan to present the item. Thank you, Ms. Halligan.
Good evening, Chairman Arith and Commissioners. I'm Michelle Halligan, Contract Planner for the Economic and Development Services Department. To date, the city has approved 15 CUPs for cannabis storefronts. The approved CUPs are shown in green. The CUP being presented tonight is shown in blue. Planning Application 21-36 is a request for a conditional use permit to establish Native Garden, a retail cannabis storefront without delivery. This item was originally heard at the January 23rd Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission directed staff to update the analysis based on their comments and to draft conditions of approval. The item was continued to this specific date. The subject site is 167 Cabrillo. It is currently occupied by a hot tub business. The site is zoned CL, Commercial Limited District, and bounded by 3 properties in the same zone. Properties zoned R2HD, Residential Multiple Family High Density, are located across Cabrillo Street. These are the proposed plans. The applicant proposes to reorient the customer entrance to Fullerton Avenue, update the landscaping, the building facade, and resurface and stripe the parking lot. A wall would be added to the property lines. If the CUP is approved, a detailed landscaping plan and photometric study would be required. At the January 23rd meeting, commissioners directed staff to update the project review based on several comments, including that Cabrillo Street serves both commercial and residential uses. There are businesses in close proximity to residences. The state has directed cities to consider commercial areas for residential uses. Therefore, locating retail activities away from residential areas may not be desirable. The proposal includes site improvements such as relocating the entrance toward Fullerton Avenue. According to the applicant's previous presentation, the business model features consultation that could slow down customer turnover. The proposed storefront includes a small retail sales floor and, as conditioned, limited hours of operation. Therefore, the proposed use would likely be neighborhood serving. The proposed storefront is consistent with the voters' intent to allow retail cannabis in commercial zones. And transportation staff reviewed data. They did not identify any transportation problems on this segment of the street. Transportation Services Manager Jennifer Rosales is available to elaborate on that review. Costa Mesa has over 50 standard conditions of approval related to Measure Q uses, including having a 24-hour on-site security guard, odor control measures, a parking management plan for grand openings and other high-volume events, as well as requiring all transactions and vendor exchanges to be under camera. The updated draft resolution includes several project-specific conditions of approval. On-site sales and vendor deliveries are proposed to be limited to the hours between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Signs regarding noise shall be posted in the parking lot. The plan check submittal shall include bike racks, drought-tolerant landscaping, parking lot improvements, and a trash enclosure. After being open for at least 6 months, The CUP shall be on a Planning Commission agenda as a noticed public hearing item for a follow-up review. This would include potential modifications to conditions of approval. There are 3 required findings for approving a conditional use permit. The proposed use must be substantially compatible with other uses in the area. The subject site is located within the CL zone. The vicinity includes a variety of commercial uses. The Costa Mesa Municipal Code does not establish a minimum separation between cannabis retail uses and residential ones. The city's multi-step permitting process and proposed project-specific conditions of approval, including a 6-month review, decrease the potential for the use to be incompatible with adjacent uses. The use should not be materially detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the public. When operating in accordance with conditions of approval, the professionally prepared security plan, and with local and state laws, the proposed use would not be materially detrimental to health and safety or otherwise injurious to property or improvements within the immediate neighborhood. The use must also comply with the general plan. The proposed retail use would be located in an existing commercial building on a property that has a general plan designation of neighborhood commercial. As conditioned, the use could be considered a neighborhood serving business because of characteristics such as limited hours of operation, limited customer area, and being located away from a major commercial corridor. As directed by the Planning Commission, staff revised the report, resolution, and drafted conditions of approval. The Planning Commission may find that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, and consider the revised analysis and approve the project as conditioned per the facts in support of approval outlined in the attached resolution, or approve the project with modifications, or deny the conditional use permit. The applicant's agent, Christopher Glue, has also prepared a presentation. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available to answer your questions.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Halligan. I always appreciate your presentations. I'm going to go ahead and take the opportunity to take a first swing here, for a high-level overview of some things that I understand in regards to this application. So, Ms. Halligan, Mr. Drapkin, if you'd like to weigh in, that would be great. So, centering this discussion on the commercial limited zone or neighborhood commercial zone, it says within our general plan that we need to take precautions. Is that correct?
That is correct. The commercial limited zone specifies that special precautions should be taken.
And I'm of the understanding that these special precautions are to literally, either in word or in intent, to hold this zone to a higher standard. Is that correct?
Chairman Arith, that is correct. By definition, this CL zone is for unique areas of land which require special precautions to be taken to assure appropriate development.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Halligan. And in that last statement that you made, as far as this including a higher standard, this would be centered on compatibility for the neighboring uses within that zone and also the residential uses that are within the area as well. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Halligan. And though the code says that residential is not to be considered as a sensitive use for retail cannabis, this particular zoning designation calls for precaution again, right? Yeah.
That
I see
is
you nodding.
correct.
Okay. And I understand this as being enshrined within our city's general plan.
Yes, the general plan designation is for neighborhood commercial, and it's specific to commercial uses that are intended to serve the immediate neighborhood.
Okay. Are there any other pieces of zoning within the city that say that we need to apply precautions quite like the commercial limited zone does?
Chairman Arith, I am not aware of any land use or zoning designations that specify to use precaution.
Okay, so I guess another way of putting that is commercial limited is the only zoning that requires precaution out of all zoning that we have.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I'll move that logic along to Mr. Preziosi, if you would like to weigh in. With the aforementioned in mind, so again, I understand that residential is not considered a sensitive use, but the zoning, the language within commercial limited basically stipulates that it has to be a consideration or a precaution when we're working within this zone. So I'm not sure how that weighs out in terms of if residential goes into how we factor how we are being precautious within items within this zone.
Thank you, Chair Arith. Because it's in the commercial limited zone, precaution needs to be considered and taken into account by the Planning Commission in making its decision whether to approve or deny the project. Should the Planning Commission wish, it would certainly be within its purview to impose conditions to ensure neighborhood compatibility in the commercial limited zone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Preziosi. And I think, on a final thought, unless anything else comes to me, that the code for retail cannabis is meant to guide us to the general plan, in a sense. That it's a way to kind of be a process, if you will, in how we utilize the general plan.
Chair Arith, when implementing Measure Q, a conditional use permit was selected as the appropriate course of action. And through that conditional use permit process, the Planning Commission uses their discretion to determine whether or not it complies with the zoning code and the general plan.
Okay, so this must also comply with the general plan, just like anything else that we do.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Halligan. And with that, I will, unless anything else comes to me later, I think that's it for me for right now. I'll start Commissioner questions with Commissioner Rojas.
I have no questions other than what you've already asked. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Tabor. No questions. Commissioner Andrade. Commissioner Zick.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to start by expressing some of the thoughts I had and expressed to you, Ms. Halligan, at our last meeting, because I thought they were important then and I feel the same today, which was acknowledging what I thought was an extremely professional and comprehensive analysis of this project, and I was greatly appreciative of all the information you presented. I indicated that there were some aspects and some points that I might not have shared the same view with you on, but that was not reflective of any disagreement with the professional work that you put into that. And having said that, I think my feeling about your work is reinforced by what you did with this current staff report, particularly page 3, where I'm just so impressed by the way you captured and characterized the feedback that several commissioners gave at the last meeting. And I think there's, I kind of make a distinction between hearing and listening, where hearing is just a true or false, yeah, you heard us, but you really listened, and I think you captured what the areas of interest were that were expressed, and I think this current report has some consideration to those. So I'm impressed with that. So I have a couple of small questions. In the last report, there was an analysis about the parking, which indicated that this facility was adequately parked to code. And I'm assuming that is still your, the result of your analysis?
That is correct. The site does meet code for parking.
Okay. And I think with the comments about the commercial limited zone and the idea that it is for neighborhood businesses, I think the idea in my mind that this is such a small building, 1,000 square feet, it is almost by definition, whatever goes in there, a neighborhood business, as opposed to what could have possibly been maybe on some adjacent parcel, a 10,000, 15,000 square foot business, which might arguably be considered regional. This one, I think, couldn't hardly be considered anything but a neighborhood business. And could you put back on the screen page 6 of your PowerPoint presentation? I think it was page 6. Yeah, so the second to last bullet, it caught my attention, and I don't disagree with it at all. The comment that the voter intent was for the cannabis retail storefronts to be in a commercial zone. And I don't disagree with that. I'm curious what the basis of your putting that there was.
Commissioner Zick, at the last Planning Commission meeting, there was a discussion about whether or not the proposed use was appropriate in the CL zone. And we discussed that the City Council, when implementing Measure Q, included the CL zone as an appropriate use through the CUP process.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you again for your good work.
Thank you, Commissioner Zick. Commissioner Vivar?
Yes, Ms. Halligan, thank you for your presentation. Good to see you tonight. I do have several questions. I think my colleagues on the commission have covered a lot of ground on some of the things I was wondering about, but I do have several follow-up questions. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around this idea of neighborhood serving business. Does that mean or does that intend to say that the business is so small and in a neighborhood area or in near a residential area such as this that it is considered neighborhood serving, or is the idea that the business would in fact be catering to the neighborhood and that we would expect many of the residents in the neighborhood to go to this business?
Commissioner Vivar, in the neighborhood commercial designation, it's intended to serve convenience shopping and service needs of local residents. For example, small markets and small retail shops. The uses permitted should be among the least intense of the commercial uses.
So the intention of the business, any business going into the CL zone would be for the residents of that community rather than residents living in other parts of the city who drive out of their way to get to that business. Is that a fair assessment?
Commissioner Vivar, yes, the intent is to be neighborhood serving.
Okay. Are there similar, based on your analysis, are there any similar businesses to this level of expected intensity in other CL zones in the city?
Yeah, so existing development in the CL zone is quite limited. We do have some uses that have later hours, but they tend to operate by appointment only or focus on appointments. There are uses nearby that are actually not in the CL zone, but they might appear to be, but they are in a C2 zone.
And how many CL zones are there in the city? Because it's a rare zone that I've never seen before, barring this item tonight.
Commissioner Vivar, I would have to check the general plan for that acreage total, but it is a very limited area.
Okay. Another question I was wondering about as well was if that, based on the description of our comments and questions at the last meeting and what we're looking at tonight, I noticed that one of the aspects of the staff report on this that remained the same was the transportation department's analysis of this project. And I'm not sure if you might be able to answer this tonight or not, but in the last meeting in this full staff report, one of the things that I think the staff report drove home is that the currently existing business operating at the site seems to be very low impact, very low intensity, and serves more as a storage place rather than a retail business. But the ITE calculations for daily trips were based on a more intense retail business area. So I was wondering why the Transportation Services Department didn't revisit that calculation to have a bit of a more consistent analysis in the transportation section to the land use intensity analysis.
Commissioner Vivar, based on your comments at the previous meeting, I did meet with the Transportation Services Manager, and we went through a variety of potential ITE manual uses. And Jennifer Rosales is here to answer your specific questions.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Halligan. Good evening, Ms. Rosales. Good to see you.
Yes, transportation staff, we revisited the trip generation calculation, and we looked at several uses in the ITE trip generation manual, and still found that ITE land use code 822 strip retail plaza it would be the most applicable to the existing. This is because it's a strip retail plaza is typically made up of a variety of sizes of commercial establishments, including establishments that are about 1,000 square feet. There is no hot tub commercial type use in ITE. We also looked at the ITE land use codes 150 and 151 that you had brought up at the last Planning Commission meeting for this applicant. And we found that ITE land use code 150 warehousing is as an industrial use, and for very large warehousing type establishments with an average of 400,000 square feet. So the trip generating characteristics of a 400,000 square foot warehouse is very different than something that is 1,000 square feet. We also looked at mini warehouse as well, land use code 151, and a mini warehouse is a building in which a number of storage units or vaults are rented for the storage of goods. They are typically referred to as self-storage facilities. These are also very large facilities in the about the 60,000 square feet average size as well. So again, a very different trip generating characteristics per square footage. So staff found that for the existing rate that the one strip retail commercial would be the most applicable.
Well, first, I found that I really thank you for doing that research and that your due diligence on my questions last week and my deep dive into the ITE manual. I'm really impressed, and I think your department is phenomenal work. So thank you for that. I guess one last question closing off, and to you, Ms. Rosales, is do you, barring the limitations of the ITE, which we know are there because of a lack of data in some cases, or lack of more applicable land uses, do you think, is it your professional professional opinion that the ITE land use code used 822, which you determined to be the only, or the best ITE code to use? Is it your professional opinion that accurately captures the intensity of the current land use at the site?
Commissioner Vivar, we feel that it is the most applicable land use to be applied that is available in ITE.
But of course with limitations, correct?
With ITE limitations, it is the most applicable one in our opinion.
Okay. All right, that's it for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Vivar. And Ms. Rosales, thank you so much for coming up. When I hear you and Commissioner Vivar talk, I feel like I'm back in grad school all over again. So thank you. Vice Chair?
No questions.
No questions. Any other questions before we move on? No? No, seeing none. I will now open the public hearing and ask the applicant to come up to the podium. To my right, your left. And if you could please state your name for the record, and then let us know if you've read the staff report and the conditions of approval, and do you agree with them, sir?
Good evening, Commissioners. I have read, the conditions of approval, and we do agree with them, except for the conditions regarding the hours of operation. I believe that was condition number 2, if I'm accurate in that. It's my privilege to present to you again on behalf of my client, Native Garden. We did put together a brief slide presentation, and I do want to start off again by thanking Michelle and all of staff for all their contributions to our presentation this evening. Michelle did an excellent job of re-highlighting our project and addressing each aspect of the proposal. And since we have already previously presented this, I will just do a brief overview of some of the key items that have been raised by staff. If you could go to slide 2 for me, please, Michelle. This project is led by Alex Palangian. Mr. Palangian's family are longtime business owners in the city of Costa Mesa. He is still excited about building a community-oriented business model in the city and has assembled a team to accommodate this unique location. This retail storefront operation will be guided by key staff specifically selected for this type of cannabis retail location. Mr. Ty Riley has developed and supervised the launch and successful operations of numerous retail locations in the state of Oregon. He specifically oversaw the operations of Good Karma Retail. This brand is embedded in residential and provided Mr. Riley with a unique experience into what it takes to work in proximity to residential. Mr. Conrad Gunderson will also be working at this location. He brings years of experience in the cannabis industry and is a resident of the city of Costa Mesa. If you could go to slide 3, please. Native Garden will utilize proven options to reduce intensity. The curated menu will be based on a select number of brands, focusing on the current needs of our clientele to reduce inventory and interface time. The appointment model will be a higher ticket approach designed to moderate intensity. This model will be a wellness model versus a transactional model. Native Garden will promote and reward customers that take advantage of our robust online ordering system. The buy online and pick up in-store model will be utilized for repeat customers as an efficient way to turn parking spaces and also reduce intensity. If you could go to slide 4, please. Our team was responsive to all of the community and staff concerns that have been provided. We have reduced hours, we've changed ingress and egress away from residential, we added a landscaping screening buffer, we reoriented the front entrance, we've secured off-site parking, we've provided an enhanced security guard role, we've obtained significant letters of support. We actually did see that one letter came in for this staff report. I reached out to Miss Jill Welton today, had a long conversation with her, and I believe have mitigated all of her concerns. regarding this property, most of which were related to previous experiences with illegal cannabis operations. We also proposed on our own behalf a 6-month review demonstrating our confidence in our operations. If you could go to slide 5, please. Native Garden will be a boutique style operation that personifies a neighborhood storefront, building relationships with partner businesses in the community. And Commissioner Vivar did mention something about what a neighborhood shop is, and I just wanted to give him our definition of what a neighborhood shop is. It's something that's locally owned and operated, which we check off both those boxes, something that focuses on the neighborhood, and of relevance, I think something that'd be very similar to the presentation that this commission heard before ours of AK Market. If you could go to slide 6, please. The team understands how to operate a neighborhood store and has a proven track record. Mr. Riley and Mr. Gunderson will be the front line of operations. They check all the boxes when it comes to an experienced leadership team for this project. If you could go on to slide number 7, please. Native Garden will utilize every method at its disposal to assist with traffic management and mitigation. We will promote bikeability and walkability by rewarding customers who utilize alternative transportation methods. If you could go to slide 8. Our proposed operation hours are 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. After discussion with staff, we carved 2 hours off the opening and 2 hours off our closing time. This is a 4-hour reduction based off the state and city approved hours of operation for cannabis retail. We discussed economic impacts of reduced hours and indicated that further restricting our hours of operation would be a de facto ban. We conducted a poll at our SoCal retail locations regarding hours of operation for the Costa Mesa stores. 95% of the respondents requested at 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. closing time. When asked for the reason why, it was due to them wanting to shop after work. To pay competitive wages and maintain economic viability, any cannabis retail storefront must be in line with industry standards. There is a shop 125 feet away that would be open 2 hours before us and until 10 p.m. All we're doing is advertising for their business by closing before 8 o'clock. If you could go to slide 9, please. We discussed permitted uses last meeting, and I just wanted to touch on this briefly. The current tenant of 167 Cabrillo is moving out, so the property owner can make improvements and bring in a new use. The adjacent property at 175 Cabrillo, Camp Lila, is also now vacant and will be re-tenanted. This former 24-hour-a-day, 7-day a week ambulance location could likely be expanded as an additional intensification use as well. Mr. Palangian has indicated that he will pursue a retail use for branded apparel at 167 beyond our hours of operation. We prefer to have a conditional use permit on our cannabis business that will be subject to review and more collaboration with the community. If you could go to slide 10, please. So here we have an overview of the neighborhood stores. Looking at the vicinity map, there has been 2 24-hour-a-day stores for decades at the end of Cabrillo, a gas station and a donut shop with a drive-thru. Within 125 feet, there is an approved cannabis retail store open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. The gym and Santa Monica Seafood are open till 8 p.m. We can go to slide 11 and 12. If you could just skip through to 12. Both these slides deal with traffic, and I thought we covered that pretty well in our last presentation, but if the staff has any comments or questions, we can come back to it. We did, however, have a conversation about how much our trip calculations would impact the site, and we're estimated to represent only about 2.3% of overall traffic on Cabrillo at full capacity. So that's pretty insignificant. And with that, I thank the commission for their time, and we welcome any questions and concerns.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Glue. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant, starting with Commissioner Rojas?
I do have one. You mentioned enhanced security. Can you go more about that?
Sure.
Tell me more about that piece.
So one of the models that we've approached is we obviously have to have a 24-hour security guard. But one of the things that we have envisioned is expanding the security patrol. We're supposed to police 50 feet, but that's not adequate. We have 4 corner businesses, which we have relationships currently with all 4 of those residents. We've spoken with those residents, one of who's present tonight. She'll be speaking later. And we've asked if they would like us to expand the radius of our patrol to help start like a community awareness project so that our security could help them with issues they have with homeless, with solicitors, with people that are just hanging out at the property, and also help provide a little more presence for security just for the general neighborhood vicinity.
Okay, good. You also mentioned rewarding bike use. Can you
Yes.
tell me more about that?
Yes, we plan to promote bikeability and walkability by providing discounts to patients who utilize those means of transportation as opposed to driving to the store.
Okay, my last question is, I don't know if this is a fair for this one from Costa Mesa area, but looking at your presentation for the Oregon properties,
Yes.
being that they were primarily residential,
Correct.
what was your experience in those areas and how did you guys mitigate those as far as proximity to the residential?
Yeah, actually, we found that embedding ourselves in those residential neighborhoods was actually a lot easier than being more of a transactional model. Mr. Riley, I'm speaking for him, but these are experiences he's shared with me. He is present if you'd like to ask him directly as well. But he indicated to me that building those partnerships within the community, especially with community-oriented businesses, they felt like that spread all their business model by word of mouth. So it actually created a lot more intimacy with the particular neighborhood they were serving, and they didn't have to advertise as much. They had really good relationships with people. People would call and alert them to things if they had problems in the neighborhood. So it became more of a real neighborhood business where, you know, when you have a more transactional model, you don't really create those personal relationships.
Understood. Last question is on Cabrillo and the other residences that are directly across. I see that you got a significant number of letters of support and petitions.
Correct.
Have you heard anybody from in those areas right there directly across from you saying anything in resistance to opening the store there?
Absolutely. Ms. Young, who's present here tonight, has spoke to us numerous times about her opposition to our project, and she lives directly across the street.
Understood. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Rojas. Commissioner Tabor, do you have any questions for the applicant? No? All right, Commissioner Andrade? None. None? Okay. Commissioner Favar?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Glue, for being here tonight. I have a couple questions for you, or maybe your colleague might be able to help with these. I'm not sure, but we'll see. So regarding the businesses that you guys operate that you are claiming are in residential or embedded in residential zones, are those only in Oregon or any in California? And what is the zoning under the land for those businesses?
So in California, all the cities that we currently operate in have an industrial zoning. So we don't have any experience with being in a commercial zone or a residential zone, if that's what you're asking me, in California. But in Oregon, it's a mixed use zoning designation. I don't know if that appropriately answers your question or not.
Well, do you know specifically whether it's, like, for example, C3 or what zoning designation?
No, I do not.
No. Okay. For those businesses that you operate, that you say you operate in residential areas, how many of those are there? 2, 3, 6?
Oh, we own over 20 stores in Oregon that we currently operate. Of those 20, I would say that you would consider at least 10 of those to be embedded in residential. All of them are within a stone's throw of residential. That's just the way that the mapping works out in that area.
And are any of them adjacent to or at corner lots that are, where essentially you're adjacent to 2 streets designated as local street in traffic engineering terms?
Could you repeat that question?
Okay, I guess I'll Are any of those sites that you're saying that you operate in residential zone, residential areas, are any of those sites similar to this, where it's a corner lot where you have two local streets on either side of the business?
I'm going to ask Mr. Riley to answer that. He's probably more qualified.
Yeah, they're literally in houses, so we're surrounded by residential in a few of these locations.
And for those locations that you operate, how many of your clientele are members of the neighborhood?
A large part of it. We get a lot of walk-up traffic, which is incredible, but I would say about 70% of it.
What is the realistic percentage of clientele that you expect from the immediate neighborhood for your proposed business at 167 Cabrillo compared to clientele coming from around the city or other cities in the region?
Well, as I described earlier, I mean, our definition of a neighborhood store is a store that, you know, again, is locally owned and operated and builds its reputation off that. So I think for a locally owned and operated store to be successful, especially a small boutique style shop, they're going to have at least 50 to 60% of their business from the local residents. And I mean people that can walk or bike to the location. So I don't mean people that live an hour away. I mean people that can literally walk to that store.
So on that note, how many people do you, what are the percentage of business clientele do you think would be coming from the immediate neighborhood around, for example, the houses across the street on Cabrillo or the nearby single family or multifamily properties?
Well, in our polling of the community, we're pretty certain Miss Young won't be shopping at our store. But other than her, most residents have indicated that they would be excited to attend our facility and can't wait for it to open. So I'm anticipating that we will have a very large number of local residents, and I estimate over 50% of our business will come from local residents in that neighborhood.
But your business model, kind of reducing the car trips, which I commend that, by the way. I think we should be limiting vehicle trips where we can. But I'm just going to comment that seems to suggest that you are catering more towards people who are needing to drive to your business rather than in the neighborhood. But maybe that's just a comment. And that's it for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Commissioner Zik.
No questions.
Okay, Vice Chair.
No questions for the applicant.
Questions. Okay, and if we can pull up Mr. Glue's presentation, slide number 10, please. It was the map. Okay. Mr. Glue, if you would, just jog my memory as to what you said here. You're talking about the compatibility of uses within the general area, is that correct?
Yes. My point, if you're asking the reason for the inclusion of this slide, the reason for the inclusion of this slide was to just give some opportunity to digest that there are businesses that are operating till 8 p.m. or later in the general vicinity. I understand that the prior ambulance operator that was at 175 Cabrillo was actually a good tenant. I had no complaints about their operations, and that was a 24/7 ambulance service. So looking at things like that and seeing the crack shack on the corner open late, you know, seeing the gym next door open till 8 p.m., the fine food establishment there, Santa Monica Seafood, that's open till 8 p.m. I feel like there's another way to look at this, is that we do fit into the general plan there. I mean, obviously I appreciate the CL zone. I also appreciate that we have taken many special precautions by making a lot of modifications, by trimming 4 hours off of our business model to the point where we're cutting it pretty razor thin as to economic viability. And we really look at this zone as a zone that does require precautions, just not prohibitions. And we believe that we are going to be a good community member, and we can work within the parameters of these other businesses that have long operated successfully. And we will be back in 6 months to talk about hours of operation.
Okay. And I guess as a follow-up question, aside from your proposed site and also aside from the previous ambulance use, do you happen to know what zone all of these other businesses that you cited are in?
Oh, we're excluding the ambulance?
And your proposed, yeah.
And
site.
we're excluding the cannabis property that's 125 feet away.
I'm not asking you that. I'm
I don't
asking you if you know what zone all of those other businesses are in that you just cited.
They're in this commercial zone.
Commercial zone. Okay, thank you. That'll be all for me. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Glue. And I guess we don't have any other questions. Commissioners, questions? No? All right, seeing none. I will now open up the public comments. If you would like to speak to this item, please approach the podium off to my right, your left. I think the podium on the other side here is having some issues with the screen. So if you're also on Zoom, use the raised hand option. And if you're joining the meeting on your phone and would like to speak, please press *9. We will start with the chambers here. So yes, sir.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Christian Martinez. I'm a researcher and political organizer with UFCW Local 324. We are the main labor union that represents cannabis workers in Orange County, and we very much support the application of Native Garden. We have a contract with the owners of Native Garden in other locations, and they are one of our best union employers. Our partnership with them is actually one of our most fruitful. The wages and benefits they provide for their workers are exactly what the city requires to continue providing quality jobs for the city, and their commitment to the welfare of their employees only reinforces the city standard for any other employer looking to open up shop in the city. And so, once again, we just want to encourage the approval of Native Garden's application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else in the audience?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Could I have a question to that gentleman?
Yeah, I think that'll be fine. Ma'am, we're going to allow Commissioner Zick to ask the previous commenter a question. Thank you. But we do look forward to your comment.
Sir.
You spoke very rapidly, and I missed what union you represented.
Yeah, so UFCW Local 324. Our office is in Buena Park, and we are the primary labor union that represents cannabis workers in Orange County.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zick. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening to each commissioner. My property is contiguous to the property in question, and first I would like to tell you that the hours of operation for the current spa business indicated on the Planning Department report are not correct. For the past 15 years, their customers came to this location at all hours of the day or night because someone was always on site 7 days a week. 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. was never the only time customers were on the property. Businesses all around us are open anywhere from 5 a.m. to 10 or 11 at night. Small businesses must work the hours necessary to be profitable, so limiting the hours would never be financially beneficial. The cannabis company should be given equal opportunity to the same type of business hours. By limiting the hours, their working customers could only buy product on the weekends or just before their closing hour, or 6 o'clock. I mean, a lot of people couldn't even get there. This is tying their business hands behind their backs and makes them non-competitive. Giving this cannabis company equal opportunity to be a success will only happen by giving them equal opportunity to the same operating hours their nearby competition was given by the city. Also, if the city wants this company to be an example in the future for a mixed-use area, your criteria should not skew the results by limiting the hours. That gives you nothing. I personally have no problem with this business being open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. I would be the first person up here complaining if I thought for 1 minute there was any problem with traffic, parking, or noise. And my neighbors, who are right next door to this property, are in agreement with me. We suggest that you give this cannabis company the opportunity to prove themselves and allow them to operate their business from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., just like their competition. I believe this company will prove to be an asset to our neighborhood, so please give them the opportunity. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for your comment, ma'am. Is there anyone else in chambers that wishes to speak on this item? Yes, ma'am, if you can go over to the other side, thanks. And if there's anyone else, if you could please queue up on that side, that would be great. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, hello, my name's Diana. I'm a longtime resident of Costa Mesa, and I've lived in Orange County my entire life. I just want to say that I think the native cannabis company, it has a great business model, but I don't think it's great for its current location. I think the neighborhood's losing diversity. The Costa Mesa's already approved a number of other cannabis locations, some within 100 feet, that are in the commercial zone already. We've lost Camp Lila, which was a cute little children's location, and even though now they support it, they're no longer there. I also think that you state the cannabis place would be serving the neighborhood. The neighborhood, again, already has a bunch of cannabis locations within a block radius. Native cannabis is also comparing itself, like it stated earlier, to the gas station, to the donut store that was there. Those are in commercial zones, not the commercial light zone. Because of this, you really should, if you approve the permit for them, really should approve limiting their hours. I mean, I would even suggest 9 to 5 if you have to put it there. I live across the street from the proposed place, directly across the street. I'm not a fan of having it there, not right there. You know, I have no problem if it was in the commercial zone or even in the little area right there. I live with the gym traffic, Santa Monica Seafood, which is a wonderful restaurant, but it's just gonna increase the traffic, the accidents. It's just not right for the current neighborhood. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Commissioner, Chair, and Commissioners.
Good evening.
I dislike being here opposing a business. I know they want to operate and provide funds for the city, and they do have seems like they are a reputable and they're capable of operating. But however, my house is at the end of Fullerton Avenue, and then it is exactly on Cabrillo, so I'm double impacted at that house. My living room looks out at the front door of 167 Cabrillo, and the bedroom faces Fullerton Avenue. With the new cannabis store going to open up on 17th Street at 170, their parking lot is right next. Their parking lot goes out on Wells Street, and it's next door to the house that will be next door to 167. So that's double the traffic. I wondered if that was taken into account when they analyzed the traffic. Will be impact, and then perhaps their customers will park in front of our house, maybe in the driveway. It will impact us in that respect and in other ways. So in that respect, I don't think it fits the general plan. I'd like to bring up the neighborhood serving. My experience going around and speaking to the residents, I don't see them as really welcoming this project. It's different from the ambulance. I lived across when the ambulance was there. It was totally quiet, no cars, no traffic. They operated 24 hours because they went out on the street when they had a call. They did all their business away from Cabrillo Street. And then when the violin shop, very few, just very quiet. And then the tub, people may come to look at the tub, but there would be sparse, not heavy traffic. Like this is supposed to be commercial light. It's supposed to be a buffer from Cabrillo. I mean, it was a buffer for the from the busy commercial avenue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your comment. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mrs. Young, again. My name is Alex Plangian, and I am the property owner of 167 Cabrillo. And actually, I wanted to mention that 115 Cabrillo as well is another property which I own, and also 1734 Newport on the corner of Cabrillo is another property that I own. And I support having a viable and relevant business at 167 again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plangen. Is there anyone else in chambers who wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, Anna, let's go to Zoom first.
No, there's not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there anyone on the telephone?
No, there's not, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. I will now close the public comment portion of the public hearing and ask commissioners, do you have any further questions for the applicant? If you do, just turn your mic on. For staff. Okay, seeing none for the applicant, we'll go ahead and move on to, actually, before we move back to staff, additional staff questions, Mr. Glue, if you'd like to come up and provide any closing comments, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you again, commissioners, and thank you for everyone that spoke. I wanted to remind the commissioners that we're happy to work with our neighbors, and we're happy to work with Ms. Young, and we want to help monitor the impact of our business. And we're going to be back in 6 months, so we know it's behoove us to make a good impression and make sure in 6 months she comes back and speaks in support of our project, because we know you'll be listening and we know you'll hold us to task. We know we're not going to get away with anything here, so we want to be responsible. We want to be good neighborhood business. We are going to have a security guard that it's using traffic flagging measures. I've been to this property well over a dozen times, and the current business is extremely overparked there. They park on the street. There's a lot of issues with traffic around that curb because there's blind spots and things of that nature. We want to work to be a solution for those problems. We have reoriented our door away from Ms. Young's home, and we have a lot of neighbors that are contiguous that support our project. As a matter of fact, everybody in the four corners supports our presence there. We're also sad about Camp Lila, but our existence has nothing to do with that building being empty at this point. And I do have a question for the commissioners to ask you, is if you have any questions regarding the hours of operation or any proposals for solutions. We've reached out to staff. We've asked about considerations, things that we could do to help address your concerns about the hours of operation. And if you have any of those concerns specifically, we'd be happy to come up with a plan to address those.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Glue.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. You may have a seat. Commissioners, do you have any further questions for staff, starting with Commissioner Andrade?
Yeah, just a little more background on the proposal to shave those 2 hours at the close of business.
Commissioner Andrade, we took a look at the nearby businesses and reviewed their hours of operation. We found that several businesses that are open later operate primarily by appointment, and therefore their customer traffic is very limited. There were other businesses in the CL zone that are office uses and typically close by 5. And then the website for OC Hot Tubs states that they're open between 10 or 11 and close at 5 p.m. So that's the context within which we made our decision to try to make the proposed storefront more compatible with the neighborhood.
I guess I was under the impression, right, in the applicant's overview that their business would be primarily either just for pickup or by appointment only. So wouldn't they still be within that range?
Our discussions with the applicant did not include operating by appointment only.
Yeah. That's all. Thank you.
That's all? Okay, thank you, Commissioner Andrade. Any other commissioners wish to ask questions? Yes, Commissioner Tabor, thank you.
So I see the multifamily unit across the street. Do you know where they park, those folks that live in that facility?
Those residential multifamily projects, they have their own parking. In the city of Costa Mesa, we don't count off-street parking. Like, for example, the actual street, that's not providing parking.
Does so awesome presentation, so well done, super compelling, and it seems like we've addressed like if the parking becomes a problem, there's potential pass or permit system and these type of things. But my question is how long does it take to implement that stuff if the neighbors are really inconvenienced? And what if the beautiful plan ends up not being great? I know there's a 6-month review, but I guess for me, being in a light commercial area or whatever this thing's called, I want to make sure if it doesn't go according to the beautiful plan, that there are things that are going to help the neighbors. And I see some of these things, but what I learned in that presentation with the market is there's a bunch of signs in the window that aren't according to code, but until someone complains, nothing happens. And so if a neighbor is inconvenienced and complains, what are the systems we have in place to address that and ensure that the neighborhood isn't going to be disrupted?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Tabor, for the question. We do actually have a division of our department that responds specifically to neighbor concerns in compliance with code provisions, compliance with conditional use permit conditions, and generally in compliance with many factors that go beyond those.
That's cool, but like, what happens if they come out? Is there a slap on the wrist? Is it maybe you might lose your conditional use permit, or like what?
So yeah, all of the above. There are varying levels of responses, going all the way up to losing your potential license for operation. Before that, possibly getting involved with the city attorney and having them take this to court for adjudication. Lots of levels below that, fines, all kinds of all kinds of requirements. But our first real response is trying to find compliance. So our code enforcement department goes out there and works with the applicants. A perfect example of a situation that happened in the nearby, some of the nearby uses was the staff worked with the gym to work with providing mitigation for some concerns that some neighbors were having. So, so there's lots of other examples, but the code enforcement department works they work very hard to make sure that operations are having compliance, and then also with neighbors that have concerns.
I mean, just what you're outlining, it seems like it would take so long. Like,
it takes some time.
Go through the court, years. By that time, neighbors are super disrupted. Like, it seems like legitimately they want to do the right thing. But it's like, I don't know, they're businessmen, you know, is there business ways of dealing with this that are going to affect the bottom line, so they're super compelled to be compliant? Because what you're outlining doesn't seem like it's going to move the needle. Like, you're going to come out and someone's like, oh, you're not compliant. It's like, sorry, you're not compliant. And they come back next month, oh, you're still not compliant. And then it goes down the road and it takes years. And so I believe they do want to be good operators, and I believe they do have a really good plan. I believe also that it's in this light commercial area butting up against residential, and so there's legitimate complaints. And so I'd love to see a way that, you know, if the beautiful plan doesn't work, we're still helping the residents around there. And it just seems like everything that's designed to help this parking situation takes a long, long time to implement.
Yeah, I won't say that code enforcement happens overnight. In some situations, it happens very quickly. In some situations, it does take some time. In most situations, businesses operate just like they say they're going to operate. And we don't have any business neighbor concerns. In this situation, staff has highlighted a lot of conditions that in the surrounding area where there could be some incompatibilities. That's what staff was concerned with initially. Now we've provided you, the Planning Commission, a report and a resolution that has a little bit more intensive conditions for approval. And that's kind of what the commission's really here tonight to make a decision on. Are those conditions meeting the threshold to allow the commission to approve the use?
Thank you.
That's all, Commissioner Tabor? Okay, thank you. Are there any other commissioners who wish to speak to staff? No? All right, seeing none, I will now close the public hearing, and I will go ahead and make a motion. I make a motion to find that the project is exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act per CEQA Guidelines, Section 15301 for existing facilities, and approve planning application 21-36 subject to the conditions of approval, including the 9 to 6 timeframe. And per condition number 12, I would like the language to read, the applicant may request a 6-month review, in that we will not force it. And that they will go through the regular channels to make that request after the 6-month date. Is there a second? Seeing none?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chair. Can you just, what exactly would that change, that adjustment?
So for the condition of approval number 12, it effectively means that instead of forcing a 6-month review, that we would allow the applicant to request the review should they want it. That allows them the ability to decide if that's something that they want to do. And if, I think, I can't really speak too much to it unless, you know. So not seeing a second, that motion dies for a lack of a second, and I will ask for an alternate motion. So Anna, if you could clear the motion, please.
Chair?
Yes. I see a motion made by Commissioner Toller.
Let's hear it.
Okay, I move that the Planning Commission find that the project is exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act and approve Planning Commission 2136 subject to conditions of approval with modification to operational condition number 2 so that the hours go from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Is there a second? Seeing none, that motion dies for lack of a second.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we find the project is...
Hold on a sec. Thanks, Anna, for clearing the board. Yes, sir.
Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
I move that we find the project is exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Qualities Act per CEQA Guidelines 15301 and approve the planning application 21-36 subject to conditions of approval with a modification to condition of approval number 2 on page 15 so that it reads that on-site sales to customers is limited to the hours between 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. 7 days a week. And if there's a second, I will elaborate.
Is there a second? Seconded by Toller. Please speak to your motion.
Okay. First of all, it's pretty clear to me that the applicant is willing to work within a 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. timeframe, which is more restrictive than what we have done with other cannabis businesses. To further restrict them, I think would place an undue burden on them and would in particularly place them at a competitive disadvantage to another business, which is literally a walk across a parking lot from where they are located. That's the basis of the 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. The 6-month review, which is part of the condition of approval number 12 on page 9, is a good one, yet it's a problematic one. It's a good one in that it ensures by this item coming back for a review that we'll be able to scrutinize compliance with conditions of approval and give residents both notice and an opportunity to provide input to us as to their assessment of your compliance with those. I think the problem with the 6-month review, the potential problem, is that some might view this as a second bite of the apple, meaning we're rolling the dice on whether this works, and if it doesn't work, we potentially withdraw a condition of approval. That would be quite a financial hardship on a business that has invested to get up to speed in 6 months. I think that would be problematic. This condition does specifically say, though, that we have the right to modify the approved hours of operation. You've agreed to this condition, and because of that, you have agreed to the potential of reduced hours of operation should we find that this 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. is a problem. So I think you're sufficiently motivated to make sure this works. Do your best to run a good business.
Commissioner Toller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am in agreement with the motion. Thank you, Commissioner Zick. I agree with all of that and the reasoning behind striking that balance in the hours. I think it's a good it's a good proposal for now, especially since they'll come back in 6 months and we can review it from there. My motion was to allow them the hours that they wanted because of the nature of the business. This is a small boutique place operating out of a house. And if this were a bar where every time the door opened, the music would spill out to across the street, it'd be a different story. But I'm in agreement with the motion to approve it for a number of reasons. Like I said, this is a business operating out of a house. We know it's adjacent to residential uses. It's a very small operation. The way it's described, it's going to be quiet. It's a big improvement from what's there now, which is clearly an eyesore and a nuisance. I think there's 18-wheelers that come by. There's forklifts in operation. This is going to be a significant facelift. There's a lot of letters of support for this. I saw letters of opposition, but I did notice that the letters of support were all from neighbors and the letters of opposition were from all over other places in Orange County. I don't think, the approach that I come to these with is consistently, are we treating all of these the same? Are we operating in the spirit of what the voters intended for Measure Q and what the City Council intended in their implementation of Measure Q? We could have listed residential uses as a sensitive use and we did not. And what we're doing is deciding to what extent the government should be meddling in a business in a commercial zone and what used to be a business, and saying no, you may not because it's too successful. No, you can't be open all the hours that your competitor a stone's throw away is open because of some. I just can't make those findings for denial. I think they're gonna be a great addition to the neighborhood. I'm glad they're coming back in 6 months so we can take a look at this, and that's it.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Would anyone else like to speak to the item? Commissioner Tabor.
All right, guys, if we do this, don't mess it up. I guess we have a recourse with changing the hours, but you know, you're solid business guys against neighbors. You could tie this thing up for years. I don't want that. So just out the gate, let's just do it right. And everything you said, let's make it happen. You know, you're very persuasive, very good presentation. You're really good at your job. Now let's see it in action.
Commissioner Vivar.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank staff on their hard work on this application. Having to prepare two presentations to the Planning Commission, I am sure was not easy and took a lot of your staff time. So I do appreciate your hard work on this. And thank you to Mr. Glue and his associates for coming to both meetings as well and willing to engage with us on our questions. I do appreciate my colleagues making efforts to restrict the hours of operation and making sure that there are safeguards in here so that this business is compatible with the neighborhood, or at least is as compatible as it could be. I'm still not convinced that even with these modifications, the business is a good fit for the area. That we need to keep in mind that the commercial limited district does have special designations, as was repeated by staff many times tonight, that need to be taken into consideration. And I think that the motion proposed works towards that, but I'm not convinced that this is going to have, no impacts. I'm glad it's coming back to the Planning Commission for review, and that'll be an opportunity for us to look at, what's going on with the application, or with the project once it's up and running. But again, I'm not convinced that this is going to be a good fit for the area. The adjacent area businesses are offices and appointment only, and this is neither of those. I don't think that many of the neighbors. I don't think that 50 or 60% of the neighborhood will be shopping here. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. But I think that the spirit of CL zone is supposed to be for neighborhood consumption. And lastly, I want to speak to something that was written in the staff report and that Commissioner Toller alluded to regarding the will of the voters. I'd like to remind those listening that the original Measure Q language said that there would be, in fact, safeguards for residential uses, and it said that the locations would be limited in the city. Yet we've now reviewed more than 15 of these and have however many more on the docket to look at. That doesn't sound very limited to me, and I am pretty sure that the ordinance said that they wouldn't, cannabis wouldn't be located close, adjacent to residential. So whether or not this is this approval tonight, we heard from is the will of the voters. We heard from a resident tonight who I've heard from similar comments from residents around the city who voted for Measure Q, but did not expect that cannabis retail storefronts would be proposed right next to where they live. So I think to claim that this is the will of the voters is a tall order. I don't think anybody can say that. And so I'm glad that this is going to come back to review. I'm not supportive of the motion or the project, but I hope that I'm proven wrong in 6 months. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Commissioner Andrade.
Yes, thank you so much, Commissioner Sick, for the motion. I definitely appreciate maintaining the review to come back to really address the concerns of the local residents. You know, the last hearing we had on this, there was concerns on, you know, the traffic and accidents. So, and I know that's not for this this group and this body to address those issues, but what can the city do to support that so that it doesn't create this kind of tension for what could be a really successful business in this area? But otherwise, it's good.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rojas.
Well, you know, we're walking a razor's edge here. You know, you guys have done a phenomenal job here presenting, and in your past presentations you've done. But then also we have to take the consideration of the citizens of Costa Mesa in mind. So I've got mixed feelings on this one, or mixed perceptions on it, because I too, like Commissioner Vivar, I'm not convinced 100% that it's there, but I also agree with my colleagues that we want to support the businesses that are present. So it's a bit of a tough one on this one. You know, if it's just a matter of location, just as in real estate, it's location, location, location. 125 feet doesn't seem like much, but it could be. You know, there's a significant difference between being right next door to them, being 125 feet away, because not only is it 125 feet from property line, but there's also a parking lot buffer as well. So you're actually farther away from that. My concerns on that one are this, but I appreciate your compromise on changing the direction of the entrance of the properties, doing what you're doing to make it accomplishment. And we really hope that this isn't something that impacts you as the citizens in a negative way. So again, you know, the challenge is, you guys know what they are. I do believe that you have a sincere desire to cooperate, and I see that in you guys. So looking forward to see what we have in 6 months, and let's hope we can find a happy medium there. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner, and I think it falls to me. I'd like to start by thanking Mr. Glue for his presentation. I've come to really always enjoy when you're up to the podium, and I do enjoy our calls very much. I would also like to thank staff for going to the great lengths to come back with a request to cobble together conditions of approval in an otherwise very difficult zone to do so. I won't labor this conversation much, but I will say that I am not supporting this motion. It doesn't make sense to me. There is one land use designation here within our zoning that stipulates that we have to apply caution. and it specifically names residential. So however the code reads, it is different than the actual general plan designation for that zoning. I think that staff's recommendation to go to 6 o'clock was very much the compromise there. I think it was start out with 6. If you want to come back in 6 months to revisit this for an extension, then maybe we do that, but we're not there. This was to apply caution in an area that requires caution. To go straight to 8 o'clock, which again was the original request that staff had denied, seems a little bit backwards to me. It has nothing to do with Native Garden or anyone who's affiliated with the project. I think very highly of you guys, and I enjoy talking to you very much. It has nothing to do with your industry or the ethics or morals that surround it. I guarantee you it doesn't. But in this particular case, when we're looking at our city's constitution, it makes sense to me that we try to follow it as closely as possible, and that 8 p.m. right out the gate is simply too much. So I just can't get there. It's not a motion that I'll be supporting this evening. So with that said, Anna, if you can bring up the vote, please.
That motion carries 4-3 with Chair Arith, Commissioner Vivar, and Commissioner Rojas voting no.
Okay, thank you, Anna. That decision is final unless appealed to the City Council within 7 days. Thank you very much. And let's go ahead and take another 5 to 10 minute break. Thank you. Yes, please. Welcome back to the Costa Mesa Planning Commission meeting for February 27th, 2023. I call the meeting back into order for item number 3. And Anna, if you would, please read the title for the public hearing item.
Public hearing item number 3, planning application 22-34 for a cannabis manufacturing distribution and non-storefront retail facility, Fabulous Creations, Inc., at 3505 Cadillac Avenue, Unit M202. Please note we did not receive public comments on this item. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
Thank you so much, Anna. Commissioners, any ex parte to communicate today? See no, and I have none as well. So now I will, before I turn it over to Mr. Aldana, I would like Director Lee to possibly make an introduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's my pleasure to introduce tonight Mr. Christopher Aldana. He's one of our newer members to our planning team. We are always proud to say that we stole him from the city of Long Beach. He's been working for us for about 9 months now, and this is his first time presenting in front of the Planning Commission this evening. So I just want to welcome him and say that we are always very happy and proud to be attracting talent of his caliber. So welcome to the department, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Lee.
Mr. Aldana, thank you for joining us. I don't know if you knew this before you came, but we are really good at poaching talent in the area, and we are so happy that you've come on board.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. So good evening, Chair Arith and Commissioners. I'm Christopher Aldana, Assistant Planner with the Economic and Development Services Department. This request is for a conditional use permit for the establishment and operation of a cannabis manufacturing, distribution, and non-storefront retail facility within an existing 2,206 square foot tenant space located at 3505 Cadillac Avenue, Suite M202. The proposed business name is Fabulous Creations Incorporated. The property is zoned planned development industrial and is known as Cambridge Park. The applicant has applied for applicable state licenses, and the project incorporates both Measure X and Q. The required state licenses for the proposed cannabis business includes a Type 6 manufactured non-volatile, Type 9 non-storefront retailer, and Type 11 distributor. Under the Type 6, manufacturers can use non-volatile solvents for extraction or post-extraction processing. They can use mechanical methods for extraction and make cannabis products through infusion. They can also package and label cannabis products. The cannabis business is primarily proposing to produce pre-rolled cannabis cigarettes, pre-rolls, which involves grinding cannabis flower that would be used for filling the pre-roll. The applicant anticipates an estimated 1,000 pre-rolls would be produced each month. Type 9 non-storefront retail delivery only does not have a storefront and sells cannabis goods to customers only through delivery. Only packaged cannabis products can be delivered directly to customers. One of the three owners would conduct the deliveries using their personal vehicles. No vehicles will be parked on site overnight. Under the Type 11, distributors can move cannabis and cannabis products between cultivation, manufacturing, or distribution premises, move finished cannabis goods to retail premises, and arrange for testing of cannabis goods. At this time, one of the three owners would conduct the distribution service using their personal vehicle. The process would be compliant with both local and state regulations. More details pertaining to the three state licenses can be found in the staff report, and the applicant is present to provide specific details if necessary. Measure Q and X. In November 2016, voters approved Measure X, which allowed the City Council to establish regulations for medical cannabis uses in the green zone, including manufacturing, packaging, distribution, research and development laboratories, and testing laboratories. In November of 2018, non-medical adult use cannabis became legal in California under Prop 64. In 2020, voters approved Measure Q to allow retail cannabis uses in the city. In June of 2021, City Council adopted ordinances to amend Titles 9 and 13 of the Costa Mesa Municipal Code, establishing regulations for regular cannabis retail uses, including non-storefront delivery only. The applicant has completed the initial steps of the cannabis business application process, which include the pre-application. The pre-application review is required for any proposed cannabis retail storefront or any non-retail cannabis use specifically located at 3505 Cadillac Avenue. The cannabis business permit is a multi-step process which includes the collection and review of vital documents. Next, the notice to proceed to apply for a conditional use permit. Once all the documents have been approved by the city and all owners have passed background checks, the city issues the NTP. Applying for the conditional use permit. If the CUP is approved tonight, the applicant would continue on to the remaining steps, including issuance of a CBP and obtaining a business license. As mentioned, the project site is located at 3505 Cadillac Avenue in an area commonly known as the Green Zone. The 13.9 acre property known as Cambridge Park has existing on-site improvements which consist of landscaping, off-street parking, and trash enclosures. The property is surrounded by other industrially zoned properties. Here are site photos which show the current conditions of the building. The building was constructed around 1982 and is currently occupied by a variety of compatible uses. In general, the project consists of a limited tenant improvement, and there are no proposed modifications to the exterior of the building or any additional square footage. The proposed location of the business is on the second floor and is shaded in red on the site plan. The proposed loading and unloading area is highlighted yellow and is approximately 18 linear feet from the nearest building entrance and 60 linear feet from the nearest primary entrance. The proposed floor plan includes 3 general areas, which consist of distribution, manufacturing, and non-storefront delivery. The remainder of the building would be dedicated towards a shared office. The facility has a primary and secondary entrance/exit for licensed vendors and employees only. The entrance and exits are located to the south and east of the suite. Highlighted in blue is the 75 square foot manufacturing area. Highlighted in yellow is the 515 square foot distribution area, and highlighted in tan is the 700 square foot delivery area. As proposed and conditioned, video surveillance cameras would be installed on the interior and the exterior of the building with direct views of the loading and unloading area. As conditioned in the resolution, cannabis products will be transported securely from the licensed premise to the delivery/distribution vehicles, and the delivery vehicles will also be equipped with secure storage areas for cannabis products. In regards to manufacturing, the pre-rolls would be hand-rolled, but if the demand increases in the future, a pre-rolling machine would be incorporated into the manufacturing process to assist in meeting the demand. The applicant provided a detailed business plan that was evaluated by the city's cannabis consultant, which is not attached to the staff report since it contains proprietary details. However, the business plan describes the owner's professional experience, proof of capitalization, pro forma, and day-to-day operations. The applicant also provided a professionally prepared security plan, which was reviewed by Costa Mesa's cannabis consultant, HDL, who determined that appropriate security measures were included to address city and state requirements. Included into the CUP are more than 45 standard conditions of approval related to both Measure X and Q. For example, on-site consumption is prohibited, age restrictions for employees and customers, compliance with state regulations, and requirements for the CBP renewal. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a Resolution 2, find that the project is categorically exempt, and approve project subject to the conditions of approval. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available, and so is the applicant, to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Aldana. I really do appreciate it. A+, your first time making the presentation, so keep up the good work, okay? Commissioners, do you have any questions of staff on the item? Just go ahead and turn your mic on if you do. Seeing none.
Commissioner Tabor first.
Commissioner Tabor.
So I just thought it was interesting that there's a shared workspace conference room. Do you have any information on that?
So the uses, the manufacturing, distribution, and non-store retail have to be separated. So that office space is the area that's the interim in between all those uses to separate each one. And yeah, it would just be used as a regular office.
So you indicating that it's a different business or the same business and it's just their offices?
So it's the same business, but they have 3 different license types.
All right.
That's it for me. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Tabor. Commissioner Vivar.
Mr. Ladonna, first of all, welcome to the city of Costa Mesa. Thank you for your presentation. So in reading the staff report, I'm not sure if I understood this correctly, but the business would have 3 owners, and the 3 owners would essentially be the ones carrying out business duties. Is that correct?
Correct.
No employees?
There are no employees at this time, but if the business grows, then they do plan on hiring some help. But as for right now, it would just be the owners who go about the day-to-day operations.
So I have a question that maybe is more semantics than anything, but I'd still like to ask it. So in the staff report, it mentions that drivers who would be delivering product to consumer directly to consumers or to retail establishments need to have their city badge, go through the life scan. They need to carry around a copy of the CBP if requested by law enforcement or city officials. So would that also then apply to the owners? I know they're not employees as such, but would they then have to go through a life scan, get a city badge, etc.?
Correct, and all three owners have done that through the CBP process, and they would have to have their employee badges at all times. If any guests were to visit, they would have to sign in and document the guests, and they would also have to have their CBP and business license at hand in case there's any periodic inspection from the city or the state.
Thank you. And then so I noticed that that this business would be delivering both directly to customers, to consumers, as well as to retail establishments. Are the state requirements in terms of licensing and safety the same for vehicles doing deliveries directly to consumers and vehicles doing deliveries to retail storefronts? And would their vehicles meet those standards?
Commissioner Vivar, thank you. I'll take this question if you don't mind.
Sure, of course.
The delivery requirements and the distribution requirements are almost identical. And so from the state requirements for the DCC, it's under section 15417 and 15311, and they're almost verbatim exact, the same.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the delivery of cannabis to retail storefronts can be done with it can be done with private vehicles. It doesn't have to be with like specialized anything.
Correct. They have minimum requirements. I could review that if you'd like, but basically private vehicles are used and are allowed for.
Okay. All right. That answers my questions. Thank you both. And back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Any other commissioners have any questions? Okay. I do have it might be one or 1.5 questions. I'm not sure. If we turn to page 5 and 6 in the staff report, I made note of the extraction methods and the language that was used around that. So it says on page 6 in the third bullet point, use of non-volatile solvents for extraction or post-extraction and processing. So in the staff report, it says extraction, right? If we go to page 12 of condition of approval number 34, page 12, condition approval 34, it says, there shall be no extraction operations, refining, or winterization conducted in this facility. So I just, I didn't know if the applicant is able to use non-solvent-based extraction methods once they move past the 1,000 pre-rolls a month, or if they're actually barred from doing any kind of extraction methods, be it volatile or non-volatile. So I just wanted some clarification, please.
Chair Arith, I'll take a stab at answering that. So under the state license for a type 6, it is non-volatile. So it does allow for extraction. It just has to be just using no solvents essentially to do the actual extraction. For example, some of the extraction labs that have been approved by Planning Commission do revolve the use of butane propane in order to extract the cannabis flower and yield those or to create those oils. But under type 6, they're using other methods that don't involve any of those hazardous materials. For example, there's it's just pressing flour like through an industrial, almost like think of a hair strainer. But an industrial one that presses all the flour out, presses the oil out of the flour. And in that case, that's a non-volatile
Okay.
completely solventless material that, or excuse me, extraction that would be allowed under
So it'd be
type
like
6.
the difference between mechanical extraction and chemical extraction.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So they are allowed mechanical extraction based off of type 6, but the condition of approval 34, where you're saying there shall be no extraction operations, is really pointed at the volatile or butane, protein, or any of the anes that are used within the chemical extraction methods.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification. That's all from me. So unless any of the commissioners have any additional questions, I will now open the public hearing and ask the applicant to come up. And if you would, sir, please state your name for the record and let us know if you've read the staff report and the conditions of approval, and do you agree?
Absolutely. My name is Barry Fisher. I'm the representative of the company in terms of City of Costa Mesa. And I've gone through all your planners because we've been working on this for about 2.5 years. I did read the agenda report and the proposed resolution, and I do accept all its terms on behalf of the company. I just wanted to let the commission know that the 3 separate rooms in the unit are all going to be sealed and only opened with a electric card. So they're really going to be separate areas, even though they're within one suite. And we're very happy to be opening up a business in Costa Mesa, and 2 of the owners' families are planning to move to this area once we get the business open and be part of your community. And we appreciate you welcoming us to your community. Does the panel have any questions for me that I might be able to answer?
I said you're checking off my next point on the to-do list, so sure, we can move on. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Zick.
Thank you. Excuse my sucking on this piece of candy. I thought you were going to talk longer. Are any of the 3 owners here with you?
All 3 owners are here. Diana Popik is sitting in the 2nd row, and Afsoon Barkada is in the 3rd row.
And who's the 3rd owner?
I'm the 3rd one.
I see. You're more than just the representative then.
Yes, I'm the owner. But in the paperwork, it says that I'm the representative, applicant or authorized agent on page 1 of the agenda. It says that, so I was just identifying myself that way.
Okay, so I didn't see anything in the staff report that talked about your experience in operating retail cannabis businesses. Do you have any, or is this your first attempt?
No, I do have some. I'm semi-retired as an attorney, and for the last 7 years, I've represented cannabis applicants in all different processes in Los Angeles, from licensing to problems that they were having with enforcement and compliance. So I'm very familiar with the cannabis business. I also have 20 years experience in distribution. I grew up in a family that had a wholesale distribution company selling cigarettes. Now, it's not cannabis, but the principles behind the distribution and how distribution works and getting things from manufacturers and distributing them to retail stores, I'm very experienced with. And that's my experience. One of my partners, Diana Popik, for the last 2 years has been managing a delivery service in Los Angeles. And she has a day-to-day practical experience regarding that. She knows how to do the point of sale, bring all the inventory in. It all gets scanned into the system and identified. Then it gets dispatched to the drivers. When the driver sells the product, it gets taken out of the inventory. And so she knows all those compliances. I'm familiar with them from a management point of view because I haven't worked on a day-to-day cannabis store. but from a management point of view and a legal point of view, I understand the business.
Okay. So I appreciate that response. I want to understand it a little better. So my next couple of questions aren't intended to pick at you, but they're intended to help illuminate, in my mind, how this business is going to operate.
Sure.
So when you talk about the drivers doing X, Y, and Z, are you one of those drivers?
Initially, I am one of the drivers.
Okay.
But that's until we're set up, open, operating, and starting to function, because I think we might be 3 or 4 months away from that.
Okay,
You know.
well, the staff report indicates there's only going to be the 3.
To start, it's only going to be the 3.
Right, so I'm just trying to understand. So when somebody's putting stuff, opening up a box, you're one of those guys opening a box.
I am.
When somebody's doing extraction, you're one of these guys doing the extraction.
Yes, that's true. But we're not planning to do extraction right in the beginning of the business. We're going to focus primarily on delivery and distribution initially in the process of the company.
Okay. All right, I won't pick 2 more on that. My next question has to do with compliance. So there's a little bit of information in the attachment that we received, which is a letter from your business. And it refers to Shevin Law Group as essentially your compliance counsel. Now, that's not you, correct?
No, but Shevin Law Firm is right here. That's Narek. He's our counsel on this project. And he can speak to you about being in-house counsel and compliance for us.
Okay, where is his office located? Okay. How often do you expect to be visiting the business? Physically visiting the business?
As often as I'm required to, as often as it's needed. It's a full compliance service as a in-house counsel compliance service.
So here's why I ask that. On the second page of this 2-page letter, it says that Fabulous Creations will maintain and take reasonable steps to assure compliance. I'll be honest, that doesn't give me any warm and fuzzy feeling. I would have been more convinced if the language talked about you would be making every effort to ensure compliance, not reasonable steps.
Commissioner, you're absolutely right. Might have been just a little bit of an understatement in the letter. We're definitely going to take every possible step, that's going to include local Costa Mesa laws and state laws, which I'm very familiar with. We've advised and essentially licensed hundreds of cannabis businesses, and I'm personally very, very well familiar with the process and everything to do with cannabis compliance.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions.
Of course.
Thank you, Commissioner Zick. Any other commissioners have questions for the applicant? Seeing none, I have none either. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. I appreciate it.
We had one more person here, Thomas Johnson from Post Security. He designed our security system. And could he speak to the commission just for a minute?
Briefly, sir. Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. So my name is Thomas Johnson, Post Alarm. So I've been working with City of Costa Mesa for since we all started with the cannabis, getting it approved. In Cambridge Park, I have probably most of the facilities that are protected with my company. It's a very safe place. And speaking directly to the initial concern about the separation of all these different places in that space, there's access control for all those spaces, so it's all being separated. And we're following a standard for security, which it's a published standard by UL NRS Laboratories. It's very safe. So I know that I just lost my time, so there are maps and there's detailed information on security if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Assuming we have no other questions, we'll go ahead and move it along and open it up to public comments. If there's anyone in chambers who wishes to speak, you may come to the front now. I don't see any. Anna, do we have anyone on Zoom? or telephone?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and I will just mention for process, if you can use the raise hand option on Zoom or press *9 if you'd like to unmute. So assuming no one's there, we'll go ahead and move it along. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. And commissioners, do you have any further questions for the applicant? Seeing none. Mr. Fisher, do you have any closing comments? You can make a comment or not. It's up to you, sir.
I kind of alluded to what my closing comments are going to be, which were essentially my involvement with the specific business and my expertise and my law firm's expertise. And like Mr. Fisher mentioned, we've been working for a little over 2 years to get the project on its way. I've personally worked with Chris. Can't say enough about him. He's wonderful. Miss Wint, she's also amazing. But I've personally want to assure the commission that this business venture is going to be successful. I have no doubt in that. So thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Commissioners, do you have any further questions for staff? Okay. Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing and entertain a motion, please. Motion by Vivar. What is your motion, Commissioner?
Yeah, I would like to move that we find the project exempt to CEQA requirements, existing building, and approve planning application 22-38, I think it was. 34.
So, okay. If I can, Commissioner Vivar, I'll read it back and see if it's to your liking. To find that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, per CEQA guidelines, section 15301, class 1 existing facilities, and approved planning application 22-34, subject to the conditions of approval.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Rojas. Commissioner Vivar, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. Sounds like this business operators know what they're doing. It's in, a building that already has similar uses, and I am sure that your team will be able to handle having this business in the city and growing it. I understand that the 3 owners don't plan to make deliveries and press flour for the duration of their business life. So I would like to see what your business is able to provide for the city and for the area in the green zone that you plan to operate in. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Commissioner Rojas?
No comment other than good luck to you in your operations. Thank you.
Okay, great. I see Commissioner Zek. You turned your mic on?
Yes. I won't be supporting this motion. We have 3 fairly simple, fairly routine findings that we need to have in order to support an approval. 2 of them, I'm convinced, are readily approvable in my mind. Is this development substantially compatible with other developments in the area? Absolutely. That's crystal clear to me. Will granting the CUP not allow a use, density, or intensity not in accordance with the general plan? No problem. The third one is the one I can't get over. And it's the one that talks about this conditional use permit not resulting in anything that's materially detrimental to the health, safety, and general welfare of the public. And here's where I'm struggling, and this is why I won't support the motion. To me, there's insufficient information in the record. And I don't want to disparage you or your business partners. There's not sufficient information that's been presented to me tonight that convinces me that you know how to operate this business. I see faces, I see enthusiasm, I see good intent. I don't see any information about your process, your understanding of the business, your plans for this business. Appreciate that there's a legal representation here telling us that compliance is covered. I'm just not at all convinced. To me, this is the thinnest amount of information that I can recall in any application for cannabis manufacturing and distribution business. And so, unfortunately, I won't be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Zick. Commissioner Andrade? Okay. Commissioner Tabor? Yes.
I'll just say that as a business owner, I applaud you for trying to start a new business, and that's the cool thing about capitalism, that you don't have to know everything to give it a go, give it a try. I think what the commissioner was alluding to is public safety, and I hope you guys will take that seriously and make sure you're compliant, and I wish you good luck on your venture.
Thank you, Commissioner Tabor. Vice Chair?
No comments. I'm in support of the motion.
Okay, thank you. I too will be supporting the motion to approve this project, and I would like to say a couple things. We are not the judge and jury of whether or not you can conduct a business. I didn't see anything here that would have insinuated that there was a safety concern or a safety issue. We weigh these items as written, and as written, it passes muster. So I will be supporting the motion, and I'll leave you with a little bit of humor in saying that whenever there's a Measure X that opens up, I'm jealous because it's right down the street from one of my favorite restaurants. So lucky you, Greenleaf. And that's about it. Okay, let's call the question.
That motion carries 6-1 with Commissioner Zick voting no.
All right, thank you so much, Anna. I do appreciate it, and good luck to you. That decision is final unless appealed to the City Council within 7 days. Thank you. We'll move on to old business, new business. There is no old business or new business, and we'll move on to departmental reports, starting with Public Services, Mr. Yang. Hello,
No
Mr.
reports tonight, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. No reports tonight,
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. I must have missed that. Thank you. We'll move on to Development Services, Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I just wanted to report on some recent presentations to the City Council that I know many of you are aware of. As you may know, staff have been presenting a series of study sessions to the Council with an overview of department operations. We actually started this in January with the Community Services Department. And last month, February 15th, a few weeks ago, February 15th, we presented on the operations of this department, the Economic and Development Services Department. The purpose of that presentation was really foundational as we move into discussions on the upcoming budget, as well as discussions on council priorities and goals at an upcoming council retreat. So generally speaking, and I believe this commission was provided with a copy of that presentation, but we provided an overview of department operations, including an overview of performance indicators, department resources, and a status report on major projects and efforts. So The goal of that, again, was to really provide a foundation for some upcoming discussions regarding priorities, but I think a very interesting point for this commission and certainly for staff as well was to hear and understand some of the council's feedback on upcoming priorities. We certainly have a very high workload coming to us in the next few fiscal years. There are a variety of state laws that came into effect this January 1st. And a few others that are become effective July 1st. So staff are moving to ensure that we update our codes to respond to those state requirements, while we're also ensuring that we pursue the council's priorities as well, which have to do with housing and many, many, many other council priorities. So my intention this evening was just to give you a brief overview, and we intend to bring sort of year-end report for last year and talk a little bit more about what we see coming in the future at one of our future meetings to this commission. So as soon as we find a point on the agenda where we can do that, we will. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Director Lee. That would be great. Moving on to Mr. Preziosi for the City Attorney's report.
Thank you, Chair. No report this evening.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the end of our meeting. Thank you for joining us, and I will now adjourn the meeting February 27, 2023. Thank you. Good night.